Yeah, I mean, it's also a love story, right? You know, Trinity.
We all know him as John Wick, the quiet, mysterious man with a tragic past and a fierce heart. But in real life, Keanu Reeves has a story that's just as heartbreaking. Years ago, when he was still young and rising in Hollywood, Keanu fell in love. Truly, deeply in love. He was happy, hopeful, and ready to build a life with someone special. But that dream never came true. Just when things seemed perfect, tragedy struck. His girlfriend passed away before they could ever get married or start the family they had talked about. Since then, Keanu has kept his love life mostly private. Yes, he's dated some of Hollywood's most beautiful women, but he's never gotten married. Not once. And for years, fans have asked the same question. Why? Now, at 60, Keanu is finally opening up. He's sharing the real reason he's never walked down the aisle and why he probably never will. It's honest, it's emotional, and it gives us a rare glimpse into the heart of a man who's been through more than most of us will ever know. Let's take a closer look at Keanu Reeves' personal journey and the truth behind why he says he'll never get married. Keanu Reeves' tough childhood. Keanu Charles Reeves was born on September 2, 1964, in Beirut, Lebanon, an unlikely beginning for someone who would one day become one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. His mother, Patricia Taylor, was an English costume designer, and his father, Samuel Nolan Reeves Jr., was an American from Hawaii with native Hawaiian, Chinese, English, and Portuguese roots. Patricia met Samuel while working in Beirut, but the relationship didn't last. When Keanu was just 3 years old, his father walked out on the family. The last time Keanu saw him was when he was 13, during a visit to the Hawaiian island of Kauai, a brief final meeting that left more questions than closure. After the divorce in 1966, Patricia packed up her young family and began a new chapter. They first moved to Sydney, then to New York City, where she married Broadway and Hollywood director Paul Aaron. That marriage also ended quickly, but Aaron remained a mentor to Keanu, even helping him land his first theater job at the Hedgerow Theater in Pennsylvania. The family eventually settled in Toronto, where Keanu spent most of his childhood. His mother remarried a few more times, including to a rock music promoter, and while life at home was often chaotic, Keanu found comfort in comedy shows like The Two Ronnies and the Chinese culture passed down from his grandmother. He grew up surrounded by Chinese art, food, and traditions. As a child, Keanu described himself as quiet and private. He struggled in school, partly due to dyslexia, and bounced around between 4 different high schools. One of them, the Etobicoke School of the Arts, expelled him for being a little too rambunctious. Despite his academic struggles, he found joy on the ice rink. As a talented hockey goalie, he once dreamed of playing for Canada's Olympic team. But an injury ended that dream. By the age of 15, Keanu knew what he really wanted, to become an actor. He later enrolled in an alternative school that allowed him to work and study at the same time, but eventually dropped out at 17 to chase his dream full-time. With the help of his American stepfather, he got a green card and moved to Los Angeles at 20. Although he was born in Lebanon and has Hawaiian-American roots, Keanu only holds Canadian citizenship, a quiet nod to the country where he grew up, and first began shaping the path that would lead him to Hollywood. How Keanu Reeves became one of Hollywood's leading men. Before he became the internet's favorite human and the iconic Neo in The Matrix, Keanu Reeves was just a shy, driven kid with big dreams and a complicated past. His acting journey kicked off in the early 1980s when he started working as a correspondent for a CBC youth show called Going Great. Around the same time, he appeared in a few commercials, including one for Coca-Cola, and made his acting debut in the TV show Hangin' In. In 1985, he brought Mercutio to life in a stage production of Romeo and Juliet in Toronto, and later performed in edgy plays like Wolf Boy. It was clear from the start. Keanu wasn't just another pretty face, he was serious about the craft. But his unique name posed a challenge early on. Agents told him Keanu sounded too ethnic for Hollywood. For a while he auditioned under the name KC Reeves or even Casey, but eventually he went back to being himself, Keanu. By the mid-1980s, Keanu started landing roles in TV movies like Babes in Toyland and Brotherhood of Justice. In 1986, He got his first big-screen moment in Youngblood, playing a hockey goalie, a nod to his real-life passion for the sport. But it was the film River's Edge that made critics take notice. The dark teen drama, based on a real murder case, showcased Keanu's quiet intensity and ability to play emotionally complex roles. Then came a string of teen-focused dramas in the late 80s like The Night Before, The Prince of Pennsylvania, and Permanent Record. Critics started praising his performances, noting how he brought honesty and depth to the screen. But everything changed in 1989 with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Playing the lovable and clueless Ted Theodore Logan, Keanu became a pop culture sensation. The film was a hit, and suddenly, Reeves was a household name. 2 years later, the sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, proved just as fun, wild, weird, and surprisingly creative, and showed that Keanu could hold his own in comedy. But 1991 marked a major turning point. That year, he starred alongside River Phoenix in My Own Private Idaho, a haunting, emotional road film that earned praise for its raw storytelling and strong performances. Critics saw a different side of Keanu, one that could go deep, subtle, and vulnerable. In the same year, he also began exploring music. He picked up a bass guitar and formed the rock band Dog Star. Though music wasn't his long-term path, the band toured, released 2 albums, and gave Keanu another creative outlet during the 90s. The biggest shift in his career came in 1999 with The Matrix. The role of Neo, a hacker who discovers that reality is a lie, was demanding, and Keanu trained for months in martial arts to prepare. The result? A sleek, groundbreaking sci-fi film that became a global phenomenon. The Matrix wasn't just cool, it changed the action genre forever and earned 4 Academy Awards. Keanu's calm, cool presence and stylish fight scenes made Neo unforgettable. After The Matrix, Keanu didn't chase another mega blockbuster right away. Instead, he chose to do something fun and light, The Replacements, a football comedy where he took a pay cut so Gene Hackman could join the cast. That same year, he starred in The Watcher, a thriller he reportedly didn't even want to do. He claimed a friend forged his signature on the contract. In 2001, Keanu closed the chapter on his music career. Dog Star disbanded, and though he briefly joined another band, Becky, he soon stepped away from music altogether. He returned to Neo in 2003 with 2 sequels, The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions. Though they were huge at the box office, reviews were mixed. Critics loved the visuals but felt the stories got too complex and lost some of the heart that made the first film so impactful. Still, the trilogy cemented Keanu as an action legend. Later that year, he showed his softer side in Something's Gotta Give, a romantic comedy starring Jack Nicholson and Diane Keaton. Playing a charming young doctor, Keanu proved he could also shine in feel-good films. By the early 2000s, Keanu Reeves had carved out a career that was anything but predictable, moving between drama, comedy, action, and even music. Through the highs and lows, he stayed true to himself, earning respect not just for his talent but for his humility. How Keanu Reeves snagged the John Wick role. Over the past decade, John Wick has become one of the most iconic action franchises in movie history, and Keanu Reeves is a huge reason why. But believe it or not, the character we now associate with Keanu's smooth moves and deadly calm wasn't originally written for someone like him at all. In fact, when screenwriter Derek Kolstad first penned the script, which was then called Scorn, the lead role was meant for a 75-year-old man. Yep, the original John Wick was supposed to be an aging hitman, retired for 25 years, reluctantly pulled back into the underworld. It was written with Clint Eastwood or Harrison Ford in mind, the kind of action hero who could still command a room with nothing but a glare and a growl. The story of how Keanu Reeves got involved is told in the book They Shouldn't Have Killed His Dog, the complete, uncensored oral history of John Wick, Gun Fu, and the new age of action. According to producer Basil Iwanek, it all started when a friend, Charlie Ferraro, an agent at UTA, sent him the script. Iwanek loved the tone and emotional depth of the story. It wasn't just another shoot-'em-up. It had heart, a clear emotional through line, and a surprisingly deep world behind the guns and bloodshed. There was just one problem. Casting a 75-year-old lead wasn't exactly easy. But Keanu's agent at the time, Jimmy Darmody at CAA, came calling. He asked if Iwanek had any action projects for Keanu Reeves. And honestly, the question caught Iwanek off guard. Keanu, one of the biggest action stars of the 90s and early 2000s, hadn't been in a major hit for a while. He'd been working on personal projects like Man of Tai Chi and 47 Ronin, but nothing had made a big splash. Still, they sent the script to Keanu, and something clicked. Keanu saw something special in the character. He saw a man grieving the love of his life, pulled back into a world he tried to leave behind. He was drawn to the emotion behind the violence, to the strange criminal underworld with its own rules and honor code, and to the mythic tone of the story. John Wick wasn't just another assassin. He was a broken man trying to reclaim his soul. And once Keanu was in, he was all in. According to Kolstad, Keanu devoured the script in 90 minutes and immediately said he wanted to do it. Soon after, Kolstad was spending weekends at Keanu's house working on the script together. And it wasn't just a vanity project for Keanu. His house was full of screenplays stacked high on his desk. He read everything, and this one stood out. The first thing Keanu said to me, Kolstad recalled, was, "Okay, Derek, I'm going to play him 35. And just like that, the vision changed. The old man hitman idea was gone, replaced by a lean, deadly, emotionally complex character who would bring something fresh to the action genre. Everyone involved agreed. Keanu was John Wick. And the rest? Well, the rest is cinema history. What started as a small project with a modest budget became a global phenomenon. Keanu trained for months to master the gun fu fight style, did many of his own stunts, and completely reinvented himself as an action star. The emotional depth he brought to the role, the grief, the rage, the sadness, it made John Wick unforgettable. No one could have predicted just how big it would get. But once Keanu Reeves got his hands on the script, the world of John Wick was never the same. The many tragedies of Keanu Reeves' life. By the time The Matrix made him a global icon, Keanu Reeves had already lived a life full of highs, heartbreaks, and haunting silence. Behind his quiet smile and calm energy was a man who had endured some of the most painful losses imaginable, starting with his best friend, River Phoenix. Keanu and River met in 1990 on the set of I Love You to Death. Right away, something clicked between them. It was more than just on-screen chemistry. It was a rare kind of friendship that felt effortless and real. Both had grown up in unconventional homes. Both had found acting young. But what bonded them was something deeper, a shared intensity, a love for storytelling, and an instinct to protect the parts of themselves that fame tried to take. Their friendship wasn't performative. They laughed like brothers, pulled pranks, shared long conversations, and found comfort in each other's presence. When a new script for My Own Private Idaho came into Keanu's hands, he didn't mail it or send an agent. He jumped on his motorcycle and rode nearly 1,000 miles to hand-deliver it to River. He wanted them to do it together, and they did. That film was a defining moment for both their careers, raw, emotional, and brave. But behind the powerful performances was a darker truth. River was spiraling. The weight of fame, his complicated upbringing, and Hollywood's easy access to dangerous distractions were dragging him down. Keanu, though, couldn't fully grasp the depth of River's pain. While he was navigating his own complex life, River was slipping through the cracks. And then suddenly, he was gone. On Halloween night in 1993, River Phoenix collapsed outside the Viper Room in Hollywood. He was just 23 years old. The cause? A deadly mix of drugs. At the time, Keanu was filming Speed with Sandra Bullock. When news of River's death reached him, it was as if the world stopped turning. Outwardly, Keanu seemed put together. To the people around him, he looked like he was managing. But inside, something shattered. River wasn't just another co-star or a Hollywood friend. He was the one person Keanu had let all the way in, someone who understood his silences and carried a piece of his soul. The grief was overwhelming. Keanu later admitted that he didn't know what to call what he felt. It was beyond sadness. It was something darker, heavier, something that stayed. He never truly spoke about it publicly in great detail. Instead, he did what he always did. He kept moving. He poured himself into his work. The mid to late 90s saw him bounce between genres, taking on everything from romance to action to Shakespeare. But something in him had changed. There was a quiet sorrow behind his eyes, a distance. He began to close himself off, choosing solitude over new friendships and privacy over public life. Then, just when it seemed like he'd never open up again, love found its way back into his life. In 1998, Keanu met Jennifer Syme, a young, bright woman. Their connection was immediate, and for the first time in years, Keanu allowed someone into his world again. Friends said he was lighter, more hopeful, and for a while it looked like the worst was finally behind him. But fate had more cruelty in store, falling head over heels for Jennifer Syme. Even if Keanu Reeves had known how the story would end, he likely would have loved Jennifer Syme anyway. When they met in the late 90s, she was still carving her way into Hollywood, working as an assistant to director David Lynch. But in a moment of fate, at a party hosted by Keanu's half-sister, their paths crossed and something clicked. It wasn't a typical celebrity spark or a fleeting fling. It was deep and it was real. Within hours, they were drawn to each other like magnets, and not long after, they became inseparable. Their romance unfolded quietly, away from the chaos of flashing cameras. They moved in together, shared dinners, dreams, and the kind of connection that many people spend their whole lives searching for. And when they found out they were expecting a child, a baby girl, their love took on a new dimension. For a man who had already lost so much, Keanu finally had something that looked and felt like a beginning. But beginnings don't always last. On Christmas Eve of 1999, just weeks before their daughter was due, tragedy struck. Jennifer went into early labor, and their baby, Ava Archer Syme Reeves, was stillborn. The grief was immediate and unimaginable. Two people, so full of love and anticipation, were left holding nothing but heartache. As they tried to process the weight of their loss, they began drifting apart. The warmth between them dimmed, not because they stopped caring, but because the pain was simply too big to carry together. While Keanu buried himself in work, films, press tours, and appearances, Jennifer struggled more visibly. She turned to distractions, parties, drinks, and late nights that dulled the ache but never healed it. Keanu, though no longer romantically involved with her, never stopped showing up. He made time for meals, checked in often, and did whatever he could to make sure she still felt loved, even if only as a friend. In a city that chews people up and forgets them, he stayed. But fate, it seemed, had more heartbreak in store. In April 2001, after attending a party in Hollywood, Jennifer got behind the wheel of her Jeep and never made it home. She crashed into parked cars and died on impact. Her death shattered what little stability Keanu had managed to build in the wake of their daughter's passing. For someone who had already lost his best friend, his child, and now the woman he once imagined a life with, it felt like an emotional extinction. The kind of grief that doesn't leave scars, it leaves silence. Still, he kept going. Keanu didn't let the darkness consume him. He carried it quietly. Through each film, each role, each kind gesture to a stranger, he somehow turned sorrow into strength. He was seen holding doors open, giving up his seat on the subway, and quietly donating millions to cancer research. Not for praise, not for attention, but because it felt like the right thing to do. And when his sister Kim battled leukemia for 10 grueling years, he stayed by her side day after day, holding her hand through every low and celebrating every high. To those watching from the outside, Keanu's life may have looked like a Hollywood dream, iconic roles, massive fame, money, and respect. But behind that success was a man who had spent most of his life trying to survive one heartbreak after another. From an absent father to a lost best friend, from the death of a daughter to the tragic end of a soulmate, Keanu had seen the kind of pain most wouldn't wish on their enemies, and yet he never let it make him bitter. If anything, each loss only seemed to make him more compassionate. He gave quietly. He listened more than he spoke. He showed up not just for friends, but for strangers. He became a man whose kindness was legendary, whose humility seemed untouched by fame, and whose strength came not from muscles or movie roles, but from enduring unimaginable pain and choosing to love anyway. Keanu Reeves didn't escape tragedy. He lived through it, and somehow, he turned it into something bigger than himself, something healing and something inspiring. Keanu Reeves' acts of kindness. Keanu Reeves might be the closest thing Hollywood has to a real-life angel. No scandal, no ego, just a force of goodness moving through the chaos of fame. His story isn't just about blockbuster hits and red carpet appearances. It's about the small, consistent acts of kindness that have built him a reputation few in the industry can rival. Take a rainy night in 2014. It was the wrap party for Daughter of God, a film Reeves had just finished shooting. You'd expect the star of the movie to walk in first, arms wide, greeted like royalty. But Keanu didn't even make it past the bouncer. A mix-up meant his name wasn't on the list, and instead of causing a scene or name-dropping himself, he stood quietly in the pouring rain for 20 minutes. No tantrum, no calls to the manager, just patience. It wasn't until the club owner realized what had happened that anyone even knew. And Keanu, he simply shrugged it off. That's the thing about Keanu. The man doesn't act like a star. On set, he's known not for demanding trailers or outrageous writer requests, but for rolling up his sleeves and helping move equipment. Yes, the same man who redefined action films with The Matrix and made gun fu a cinematic standard in John Wick has also been seen pushing gear alongside crew members. He doesn't act like he's better than anyone because, in his eyes, he's not. He also knows where real credit is due. When The Matrix sequels hit theaters, Keanu made millions, but a massive chunk of his earnings, reportedly around $75 million, didn't go into new cars or designer suits. It went to the behind-the-scenes team, the makeup artists, the special effects wizards, and the real architects of the film's magic. And when a studio couldn't afford acting legends like Al Pacino or Gene Hackman for a couple of his other projects, Keanu slashed his own salary just to make it happen. He wasn't doing it for the headlines. He just wanted the movies to be the best they could be and for everyone to win. But the true essence of Keanu shines brightest in the stories you don't hear in interviews or magazine spreads. On the Matrix set, one of the builders, a quiet guy who just constructed pieces of the set, was going through a rough time at home. Keanu found out. A few days later, that man received a $20,000 Christmas bonus. No speeches, no photos. Just one person quietly looking out for another. It's no wonder Reddit is flooded with first-hand encounters that all say the same thing. Keanu is exactly who you hope he is. There's the story of him hopping out of a moving car while filming Bill and Ted just to sign a fan's handmade sign. Or the time he sat at the airport for nearly an hour answering a kid's endless stream of questions after a long-haul flight. The stories are endless, and they're all real. There's one that stands out above the rest. Back in 1997, when most heartthrobs were too busy dodging paparazzi to acknowledge strangers, Keanu spent an entire afternoon sitting on the sidewalk with a homeless man, sharing snacks, drinks, and stories, and just listening. Not a photo shoot, not a PR stunt, just a moment of connection between two people, one of whom happened to be a global superstar. His generosity doesn't stop with individuals. Quietly and without fanfare, Keanu has been running a private foundation for years, one that supports children's hospitals and funds cancer research. He's never slapped his name on it. He's never turned it into a branding opportunity. It's just something he does because he can. Because he knows how it feels to watch someone you love fight for their life. His sister battled leukemia for years, and Keanu was by her side the entire time, holding her hand through treatment, comforting her during recovery, and eventually celebrating her remission. For a man who's experienced more than his share of loss, the death of his best friend River Phoenix, the stillbirth of his daughter, the tragic passing of his former partner Jennifer Syme, Keanu carries himself with remarkable grace. Tragedy didn't harden him. If anything, it softened him and made him more open and more empathetic. He doesn't just act like a hero on screen, he lives like one. They say never meet your heroes. But in Keanu's case, meeting him might just restore your faith in people. Because while the world may celebrate him for his films, his truest legacy will be his humanity. The little acts of kindness, the silent generosity, and the humility that have made Keanu Reeves not just a star, but a standard. The reason why Keanu Reeves says he'll never get married. For years, fans have watched Keanu Reeves light up the screen, save the world, and break hearts, both on screen and off. But behind the action sequences and megawatt smile was a lingering question. Would Hollywood's most beloved leading man ever find his own love story? By 2017, it seemed like even Reeves himself had given up hope. At 52, the actor's reflections on life sounded more like the musings of a heart bruised by time. He wasn't just thinking about love. He was contemplating legacy, regret, and the ticking clock that waits for no one. Marriage? Children? He saw them as chapters that had passed him by. The lonely guy, he called himself. The one who loved deeply, lost greatly, and learned to survive with a quiet kind of solitude. But the universe has a funny way of rearranging stories just when you think they're done. Enter Alexandra Grant, a calm, brilliant force of creativity. Long before Whispers of Romance, Keanu and Alexandra were collaborators. They first crossed paths at a dinner party in 2009, and what followed was a decade-long friendship built on words, art, and mutual admiration. Together, they created Ode to Happiness, a poetic meditation on emotion, and later Shadows, a haunting blend of image and text. Somewhere between the ink and the pages, something shifted. Their connection deepened as they built not just books, but a publishing house, X-Artists Books, a creative haven that matched their quiet sensibilities. It was a slow burn, the kind of love story that doesn't start with fireworks but grows over time, rooted in respect, intellect, and the kind of trust that rarely blooms under Hollywood lights. When Keanu and Alexandra finally stepped out hand in hand at a red carpet event in 2019, the world let out a collective gasp. But to those closest to them, it wasn't new. It was simply the next natural step. They had been together for years, building something away from cameras and headlines. Marriage might not be on their immediate horizon, but what they share is real. Strong, grounded, and refreshingly free of fanfare, their love is the kind that doesn't need to be rushed because the best stories don't follow anyone else's timeline, especially not Keanu's. Do you think marriage is on the horizon for Keanu Reeves and his longtime girlfriend? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.